Okay, we're continuing with the second part of a book called Ancient Greece. Okay, so we're started here. Today, travelers can drive through the mountains of Greece using narrow, winding roads with many hairpin bends. In ancient times, however, the high ground could be crossed only on foot, and then only with difficulty. As natural barriers to the easy movement of people, the mountains have often played a crucial part in Greek history. This has not always worked in favor of the Greek people themselves. One important battle against the Persians fought at a mountain pass called the Thermopylae, the Hot Gates, was lost because their foe discovered another way through the mountains, which the Greeks thought was a secret known only to themselves. The Greeks were impressed by their remarkable landscape. It says a landscape for God. They believed that the gods lived on top of their highest mountain, Mount Olympus, which is 9,570 feet. They built their temples in sites often chosen for their natural beauty, and many of their gods were associated with the natural world. God of rivers and trees, gods of wine, God of the vine, a god of the weather. They believed that thunder and lightning were the weapons of Zeus, greatest of all gods. This bronze figure of Zeus is made in 500 BC. The most important of the Greek gods and Lord of the heaven is about to throw a thunderbolt to show his displeasure with mortals. A record of the past. Away from cities like Athens, the landscape of Greece has not changed much from over the centuries. Many sites are now being excavated, and in the country areas, much can be learned just by walking over the land. Special techniques have enabled archaeologists to examine old bones and pollen samples, giving us clues about the kinds of animals and plants that were common in this period of history. The sanctuary of Delphi, believed to be the holiest place in Greece, was built high up on a mountainside under the cliffs of Parnassus. Pilgrims went there to learn about the future by consulting the oracle in the temple of Apollo. This is what's shown right here. And they went in procession to the great altar to make sacrifices and say prayers before going outside. Okay, the sanctuary of Delphi, the temple of Apollo. An amphora or jar with two handles dating from about 520 BC. It shows a group of farmers harvesting olives, using long sticks to knock down the fruit. Heavy stone presses were then used to squeeze out the oil from the fruit. The Greeks and the sea. Greece is a country of peninsulas and islands. Sailing from one place to the next is often the easiest and sometimes the only way to travel. For this reason, the Greeks have always been familiar with the sea. Like frogs around a pond. During the Dark Ages, Greeks had already started to sail from their own small countries in search of more land or wealth overseas. This search took them east to the coast of Turkey, then known as Asia Minor, north to the remote corners of the Black Sea, south to the coast of Libya, and west to Italy, and even as far as southern France and Spain. So the red parts on this picture are where the Greeks traveled to and inhabited. It says there were Greek colonies in many places around the coasts of Europe, North Africa, and the Black Sea. The colonies had strong trading links with the rest of the Greek world. Some, such as Byzantium, became more powerful than their home city-state. In all these places, new colonies grew up. Naples, Nice, Monaco, and Marseille were all originally founded by Greeks. Okay, so Greek colonies were independent city-states, although they still remained closely linked with their home city. This was how Greek ideas and influence spread around the whole of the Mediterranean region. The philosopher Plato this is right here, said that the Greeks lived around their sea like frogs around a pond. Sea traffic. The sea began to carry more and more trade as goods not available in Greece itself were shipped home. Few ancient cities could live on their own resources. Athens imported corn from the Black Sea, for example, in exchange for its olives and wine. More exotic imports included spices from Egypt, as well as slaves from many different countries. There was also trade in and an exchange of ideas as Greeks came into contact with other peoples. Also, very inventive people themselves. They were quick to see the value of the alphabet of the Phoenicians, the mathematics of the Babylonians, and the exquisite sculpture of the Egyptians, ideas that they borrowed to enrich their own culture. Poseidon, the brother of Zeus, his dual importance as god of both the sea and horses, and shown by the shape of a mythical beast, he writes. Sea trade was vital to Athens. Ships left the port of Piraeus loaded with olive oil and silver and sailed all over the Mediterranean. They brought back wheat, copper, iron, pitch, timber, and slaves. Gods of the sea. The Greeks learned to treat the sea with respect. Sometimes it seemed a familiar place full of fish and playful dolphins, but it could change in a moment to a strange, forbidding realm, the home of terrifying monsters and fearsome gods. One minor sea god, Nereus, was said to appear sometimes in human form and sometimes as a sea serpent. Presiding over this whole wonderful world was the god Poseidon, because people believed that when he was carried along in his horse-drawn chariot, the entire earth quaked. Poseidon. This bronze figure, made in about 520 BC, shows a boy riding a dolphin. and aquatic subjects such as the octopus, shells, and the dolphin were popular themes in Greek art. Heroes of the sea. The Greeks constantly told each other stories about the sea. In Homer's Odyssey, the sea is almost the main character. Battling against the hero Odysseus in his efforts to return home to the island of Ithaca after the Trojan War. Other stories reflect how far the Greeks ventured from their homeland. The story of Jason and the Argonauts tells of the journey to the far shores of the Black Sea in search of the golden fleece, or the wool of a golden ram. Underwater treasure. In recent years, some wonderful objects have been discovered in the seas around Greece. Life-size bronze statues have been raised to the surface. Some with eyes of coral still in place. The wrecks of whole ships with their hundreds of amphorae or large pottery jars that once contained wine or olive oil have been excavated by divers. The remains of over 10,000 almonds were discovered on one wreck site, possibly harvested in Cyprus in 300 BC. Underwater archaeology has now become a distinct science and will no doubt reveal further secrets of the past as exploration of the sea bed continues. That's really cool. The Greek people. What did the ancient Greeks really look like? The many statues that have survived from that time usually represent ideal human forms, how the sculptors thought people ought to look. The people shown in vase paintings are probably more realistic. But the best clues on the true appearance of ancient Greeks have come from the bodies that have been excavated. From these, we know that they probably looked much like modern Greeks do today, often short and stocky with dark hair and dark eyes. Marble statues such as this, one sculpted in about 450 BC, showed perfect human forms rather than real people. A long life. Greeks led an active life, spending a lot of their time in the open air. Probably as a result, many of them were long-lived. Among the most famous Athenians of the 5th century BC, the soldier and writer Xenophon was 76 when he died. The playwright Aeschylus, 71. The philosopher Plato, 82. And although we only know the exact ages of famous people, life expectancy was probably greater for ordinary people in ancient Greece than in many other places. The busy, bustling agora, a public meeting place, rang with the sound of farmers, craft workers, and merchants carrying the wares, customers haggling, pigs grunting, and hens cackling. The role of women. Only men could take part in public life. Women stayed at home, going out only occasionally, perhaps for a visit to the theater. Women could, however, become priestesses in ancient Greece, something that they're not allowed to do in most religions today. Oddly enough, life for women in Sparta was much freer than in Athens. Spartan women could take part in business and so become rich and influential as a result. Spartan women were also allowed to inherit or own property, which was strictly forbidden elsewhere in Greece. Although real women had such limited roles in most city-states, many classic Greek plays portray strong-willed and courageous heroines. Queen Clytemnestra murders her husband, Agamemnon, the king of Mycenae. Medea helps Jason and the Argonauts capture the Golden Fleece. Okay. Clytemnestra must be a little bit off her rocker. Foreigners or guests? Okay, so another group of people that were not allowed to take part in public life were foreigners, often other Greeks who had left their own city in search of work. There were about 10,000 foreigners in Athens compared to about 40,000 Athenian free men or citizens. But life was not too difficult for them. The Greek word for foreigners, xenos, is the same as the word for guest, and hospitality was and still is held to be a great virtue among the Greeks. The cost of slavery. Slavery was common in most ancient societies. The Greeks used it in moderation. The poor people had one slave or none, while wealthy people usually had several. Slaves worked with their owners, helping the women around the house. The farmer in the fields or the craftsman at his bench. Okay, so the slaves helped all those. And the price of a slave varied according to his or her skill, but the average price in Athens was 175 drachmae, equivalent to about $1,200 today. Per day? Not per day, just, I don't know, per house. So slaves helped women, farmers, and craftsmen, okay, their owners. Slaves were non-general, badly treated. In fact, in Athens, slaves from Scythia could actually become policemen, since most Athenians did not relish doing that particular job themselves. There were sad exceptions, though. The slave gangs that worked in the silver mines and stone quarries lived and worked in terrible conditions, but their suffering was largely ignored. A life without luxury. In Sparta, matters were rather difficult. Citizens made up only a small part of the population. Slaves called helots made up a majority of the population. A vicious cycle was created in which the helots did all the manual work, and while the citizens concentrated on training for war, largely so that they could keep the helots under control. In terms of comfort, the life of a Spartan citizen was not very different from the life of a helot. The citizens did without luxuries to keep themselves tough so that they could maintain their army and suppress any helot rebellion. A slave boy cleaning a boot. Many slaves were born into captivity. Others were captured by slave dealers who followed behind the army, ready to snap up any captives. An Athenian pot dating from 500 to BC showing a woman filling her water jar from the lion-headed spout at a fountain house. 2 women leave with full jars and 2 approach with empty ones. Okay. So, let's maybe pause there. Thank you guys. My page is facebook.com yosalplay, YOSALLPLAY. Yo. This book called like Ancient Grace.